It's Chris. I thought you might like to see a couple different ways to layer leaves in watercolor. Watercolor can be tricky because if you paint something dark, you can't paint something light over top of it, right? So if you want to layer leaves so it looks like there's a bunch of leaves kind of all on top of each other, you have to think about ahead of time what that's going to look like. So there's a couple different ways to do it. One way, this is not the way I normally do it, but I thought I'd show you, is to go ahead and paint a dark leaf. So if you haven't painted leaves, you can check out my leaf painting video. You paint a darkish leaf like this. And then if you wanted sort of a lighter colored leaf layered over it, you could get a dry brush, a clean dry brush, and take your brush, like I said, pretty dry. Make your second leaf here, okay? I'm picking up pigment and I'm gonna make a lighter leaf on top of this darker leaf. I know that looks a little odd right now, but it's gonna be layered over. All right, so I'm keep drying my brush. Remember, a dry brush is a thirsty brush. So this brush is picking up pigment. So you can already start to see how this is gonna work. Again, keep drying off your brush. So see how light that is? Now go back and get your dark pigment again, just a little, and we're just gonna touch where the first leaf would still live, so to speak, all right? So right along this line. Now if your light leaf is still wet, it's gonna bleed some. So this is kind of a, if you paint a dark leaf and you're like, oh shoot, I really wanted to paint a lighter, leaf over it, you can go back in. The other way to do it, if you really want to dry it, is get a little bit of paper towel. Let me just show you this. All right, take some of your paper towel, get the edge of it, make a little tip, and then you can just dry that spot. All right, so if you dry that spot, now you can see how dry that is. Then you can go in and you can really darken this leaf, and if you want to, you can pull it out from underneath. So again, this is not how I normally do it, but if I went ahead and painted a dark leaf and I wanted to layer a lighter leaf over top, and you can still come back to this lighter leaf and darken it up some, play with it if it got too light for you, and still add some dimension to this leaf. But remember, where they meet, the colors will bleed. So, all right, so that's one way to do it. Another way is, it requires a little more patience. So we'll do this a couple of times. Paint a lighter leaf, right? Start light. You can always go darker, but it's much harder to pick up pigment, as you just saw. All right, so just paint a light colored leaf. I'm gonna let that dry. Try to have patience, because we can place another dark leaf underneath it. The other thing that you can do while that's drying is, say you want to paint a couple pale leaves here, okay? I like to leave a center part. So say you painted a couple pale leaves here like this, maybe like this, really light colored leaves. Okay. Remember, one way to add dimension to your leaves while they're wet is to touch them with pigment. I show this in my video on painting leaves. It's a meditative. So you can see how this is drying. It's a little wonky, but it works. This is still wet. I'm gonna try to just show you. Normally I would wait for this to dry completely so that I don't run into the bleeding issue. But what you can do is just get a darker tone, and let's just pretend that there's a leaf coming out this way. So you just place it behind this leaf. That's very dark. I'm gonna switch. I was using a size 6. I'm gonna switch to a slightly smaller brush just so I can show you guys this. Let's switch to a 2. Right. So I did the outline of the leaf. And now, if this one was dry, I'd bring it right up and touch the other leaf. But since it's wet, we'll leave it. So you could actually paint this leaf. Let's see, I touched it, so it's gonna bleed here, but you could actually paint this leaf in behind, okay? So now it looks like there's a light colored leaf laying on top of a dark colored leaf. And again, you wanna wait till this top one's dry. It'll work a lot better. But for the sake of a quick video. And then to add some more emphasis to it, and we can do this over here too, that's where the upper leaf would shadow the lower leaf. So like for instance on this one, I might go in and add a lot of dark pigment where the light leaf is laying on top, because it would cast a shadow on the leaf underneath. And then that gives you really great contrast. All right, the last one is this one. Let's switch back to a 6. Well, those are almost dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint right over them. You can always layer dark leaves on top of light leaves. So if we had this and we wanted to just go ahead and add another layer, you could just go ahead and paint it just right over top. Now you see there'll be a little bit of a bleed there because the lower leaf is still a little damp. But generally, it's always easy to put a dark colored leaf over a lighter colored leaf. It's just hard to do the reverse. You gotta really paint the light leaf first. And if I don't wait long enough, use the paper towel trick and you can get like a little cleaner edge on it. And again, once it's dry, you can come back and do what you like, but those are kind of just a couple different ways to layer leaves in watercolor. And I hope that was helpful. Happy painting.